Ledger Square now at 2-2. How do you feel this week, perhaps, as opposed to last week?
Much better performance, much better team effort. I think we had an even contribution through the 22 last week. Really happy with how our defence obviously structured up, and we got a bit better response from our midfielders. I think they got on top, and you know, Danger's game was pretty special. His 4 goals obviously really important. So to be the theme again this week, make sure we get a good even team contribution from the 22.
A couple of blokes paid the price. Bernie Vince went back to SANFL footy. Tell us about how you thought he went.
Yeah, he went back and played obviously very well for the Eagles, and we've actually lost Brad Crouch today at training with a hamstring injury, so that's a bit of a setback for us. You know, I really liked how he's been playing. He's been great for a first-year player. So we've got match committee after this press conference, so we'll jump up and look for opportunities to get some good players in form back in the side. But I did like how Bernie went back. You know, he went back and dominated that game in the SANFL, and he's too good to be playing in the SANFL. You know, so we'll look for opportunities to get those guys back in where we can.
Just on that hamstring, how severe for Brad?
It doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's hard to know until he has scans. That was a really heavy track. You know, we played in on the weekend. You know, and sometimes with the younger players, they take a little bit longer to recover. We took a very cautious approach with Kerridge and Brown and Laird, and it was meant to be Crouch, but we sent those boys in, and the last drill we did before we sent them in, you know, Crouch just felt his hamstring. So it doesn't look too serious. Might be 2 weeks, but I'm just guessing. You know, but it is a setback for the kid because he's been in good form.
Brody Smith, ready to come back?
Yeah, he'll be one that will certainly try and get back into the side as well. You know, he's got speed. Obviously, playing against Carlton, we know their strength is their, as they're called, you know, the mosquito fleet of small forwards. So we'll have to have a side that can match them in that area. But I don't think anyone can catch, you know, Betts, Walker, Yaron, Gartlett, those guys. We'd have to get Usain Bolt in our side to be able to keep up with those boys. But we'll just have to make sure we structure up well defensively and don't let those boys get in behind us.
You've spoken to Bernie since the weekend. Has he learned his lesson, didn't he?
Oh, it wasn't that he had to learn a lesson. It was just he was a bit out of touch. You know, he was out of form, and we had players playing in the SANFL who we really liked. And I thought the guys that came in, you know, Lynch, Laird and Kerridge, they deserved their spot. So I really do like Bernie as a player, and it wasn't that he was had to learn a lesson. He just had to go back and just find some form, find some touch, and he did that.
Given that you said that those guys that came into the side, you know, was a team performance, do you keep them in there? Do you move them around?
Yeah, I'd like to keep them in there. I've had a look at the bit of the side at myself, just in isolation, but you know, I'm also influenced by what the rest of the team says. You know, so we'll have match committee now, and there'll be some other names get thrown up, and we'll have a look how we're structured up and just make sure we get the right balanced team for this match.
Is Jason at risk of being dropped?
It's hard when you come off the sub, I must admit. You know, he only played about 20 minutes last week. 2 weeks prior to that, he played just over a quarter. But he's another one. He's just got so much talent, and you hate to leave players out who have got so much talent. So yeah, we'll have a look at that option as well. But it is a hard side to get into, and when you're in there, you've got to stay informed to stay in there for sure.
John Cock couldn't push his case, of course, because he didn't play. Where's he at now that he's gone out twice in 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, I had a good chat with Graham last week with Mark Bickley, who's his sort of line coach. We see him more as a forward now. He's just going to have to play consistently well to stay in the side. And once again, he's had a great career for us, and he's going to have to play on the edge to maintain his spot in the side. It's as simple as that. But it's not the end for him by any means. And he's offering a lot around the club as well. You know, he's got so much knowledge and he's played so much footy. He has to be able to mentor that next group of young players coming through. That's going to be part of his role as well. But when he's in form, he'll play. But at the moment, yeah, he's out of our side. Simple as that.
Just where he sits now in terms of age and like you've just spoken about it, is it one of those situations with the evolution of the list that you maybe only earmark a bloke like that for a dozen, 12, 15 games now anyway?
Yeah, sometimes you can sometimes plan that for that to happen, and I must admit I thought that a little bit with Ben Rutten at the start of the year, but he's been one player for us who's just been in red hot form. You know, you probably don't notice him as much on the outside, but his opponent really gets much of the footy and really has much of an impact on the game. So Rutten at his age, John Cock at his age, those guys have to expect to play less footy throughout a season. It's just getting harder and harder, you know. But one thing that really excited me last week with the win is we were actually younger than the Bulldogs last week. You know, people talk about we beat a younger Bulldogs team, but we were younger than the Bulldogs last week. We only had 5 players with 100 game experience, and 6 of our players had less than 14 games experience, you know. So we're still very young. People forget that. I think because of the success we had last year and getting into a prelim and almost making a grand final, I mean, you expect the evolution and you expect the improvement to still be there, but we are still a very young team, and that's what excites me, you know. Sloane, Dangerfield, Walker, Jacobs, these boys are still 21, 22, 23. We've still got some growing pains as well, which we're going to have to deal with throughout the next year, the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years.
How have you found Taylor starting the season? There's some odd incidents that have happened, a few missed kicks that he often doesn't do, and then played on, and it's just been a bit checked, I suppose. Yeah, it has. It's been a little bit up and down, his form. He's still getting the ball, but you're right, his kicking's been a little bit off at times, and we make a little bit of fun of him at his expense in some of the meetings. You know, we show some of those kicks, but he has a bit of fun at our expense too at times as well. So it's a little bit of that, you know, you sort of get what you give out sometimes. But he's an important player for us. He puts high expectations on himself as well. Sometimes you just got to relax, go back, take the kick. But he's one of our most reliable shots for goal consistently. But at the moment, yeah, he's sometimes having a few issues in front of goal, but I'm sure they're going to be ironed out. Do you think like a big bag sort of feels like it's coming?
I hope so. Gee, I'd love that. I'd love a big bag. But he, like I said, he puts big expectations on himself, and sometimes you don't have to do that. You don't have to be the match winner every week. You have to just play as your role for the team, which is what we got a bit more last week from the entire 22.
I think Carlton lead the competition for running bounces. That comes from Georgie, the Rees.
Yep. Thanks, George.
Thanks, George. How do you stop their run? You touched on it, but how do you actually go about stopping them?
Yeah, I know Chris Yaron had 10 running bounces in one quarter last week. I don't think we've had 10 running bounces as a team this year yet, so that's their weapon, that's their strength, so we've got to be ready for that. But we're also confident that we play away as well that Carlton will be concerned about. So we've got some strategies lined up, you know, to make sure that our players don't get exposed over the back end. And who knows, we probably will give up a goal or two where one of those guys gets out the back of us and they show us that speed. But yeah, we'll be well prepared for that, and we've certainly got some options that we can play on those boys. But the defence up the field is going to help. We can't give them time and space up the field and allow them to hit those quick plays out the back.
Brenton, two of your top line players in Dangerfield and Thompson, they're a little bit down on clearances. Why do you think that is?
Well, Dangerfield and Thompson have spent less minutes inside the centre bounces for starters. We're sort of trying them and experimenting in different roles. You know, Dangerfield goes forward and kicks 4 last week. Yep. Thompson spent more time outside of the centre bounce, so Sloane and Douglas, Wright get more minutes in there. But it is an area that we have been working on. We did a lot of work today with centre bounce and stoppages. It was a dominant factor for us last year. I mean, the numbers were extraordinary in 2012. They're not as dominant in 2013, but they're still acceptable. But it's still an area that I want to keep getting better at, and we're still working on hard behind the scenes.
The other one I was interested in is, we're talking about players coming in and out of the side. Are you quite comfortable with having that each week, or would you like to settle the side at some stage?
No, not so much. I think you pick the team each week that you actually pick the team to win. You know, you don't think I'm not going to change it because I don't want to make too many changes. You pick a 22 each week that you think will win the game, and I know last year at times we discussed that in these press conferences about we'd always make 2 or 3 changes a week. I mean, ultimately we pick the 22 we expect to win.
Just a quick one, mate, on Cam Ellis-Young. I know a few weeks back you said you'd like to see him make his debut this year. From what I can gather, there's a little bit of early discussions on maybe moving SANFL clubs if he can't break into the ones at the Eagles. What's your take on that? Is it a situation that you wait until he's playing good footy in the twos and still can't break in? Or
yeah, I mean, ideally we'd prefer for our players to be playing SANFL League. That can't always be the case, and we work with the SANFL teams to ensure that the guys are getting as much exposure as they can to league footy, but we understand that they pick a side to win as well. So we are monitoring that one, and it could be an option for us if he continues to play reserves footy, but the ball's in his court a bit too. You know, he should be dominating SANFL reserves, and and hopefully he gets back in the league side, plays well, and yeah, I'm still confident that we'll see him play AFL this year.
Scott Thompson unlucky to lose his challenge?
Oh, it was a hard one, yeah. I mean, walking across the ground after the game, we really cut that up. That was a really heavy track. You know, in racing terms, it was a heavy 10. Sometimes when players change direction, I don't think Tomo was trying to hurt him, but we'll certainly accept the match review decision and what the tribunal put down. We'll just get on with it now, yeah.
What's the system working?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, you know, I can't comment on that. It's one of those ones where each case is on its merits. Scott was really confident that he didn't try and make contact with anyone with his opponent's head, and unfortunately did, and it's got to have to live with it.
What do you reckon about, what do you reckon about Carlton? What's the key to beating?
I'm not going to tell you, but no, obviously we rate Carlton. They're very well coached. You know, their win last week in the West was outstanding. We're really concerned about their small forwards. That's their strength. But you look at their midfield still. You know, with Murphy, Judd, Gibbs, Simpson. This is a quality team. We're going to have to beat our best to beat them, and it's important for us to play well at the MCG as well. That's where they play the big game at the end of the season, and we had a win and 2 losses there last year. So we'll make sure we go across there with a really strong game plan, and hopefully we get the win.
How can you to break the up, down, up, down?
Very keen. So what are we up for? We're up for a down, aren't we? Yeah. Oh, sorry, we're down. It's time for a down, but no, it's really important that we get consistency. You know, we show flashes of what this young side can do, and then we let ourselves down. You know, so it's important that we keep the foot on the throat. We don't get complacent and happy with last week's result. It's important that we turn up ready to play again this week.